All right, I'd like to
4 to 6, I think.
call the May 22nd Water and Utilities meeting to order. Couple items, actually, 2 items on the agenda. First item we have is a RCA that stemmed from the utility rate review, RCA 14-109 from Nino Piccoli, Utility Rate Review Commission's recommendation on water rates. I don't know if you attended. Make a long story short, utility rate review met last week, recommending a 5% increase in the water. This stems from a couple issues. Our water, as everybody knows, our water accounts always run thin, very thin, and some reasons behind that. I think it all stemmed from when we originally put the new water connection in with Avon Lake, that the dollar amounts that were calculated at that time to keep our accounts afloat, I think we started off in the rears, or pretty close to, and we've been playing catch up the whole time. We continually, not continually, but we get increases from Avon Lake, who supplies our water. We have, I think, done the best we can to try to keep the increases minimal. There were times in our water rate history that we didn't have any increases, and then we started to implement some. I think we have a chart that we have in front of us that Keith put together showing Avon Lake rate increases compared to ours. This just goes back to 2007. But 2007 we had a 5% increase, 2008 5%, 2009 3%, and not until 2012 we did a 7.5%. But was that across the board, Keith, or that's when we had looked at how we build and consumption? And
We very much changed the rate structure that time. All the other increases on this chart were pretty much across the board. That one, we didn't raise the minimum bill, but we did reduce the quantity, and we didn't raise the bill on the highest quantities, but they also did pay the extra for the 100 cubic feet less included in the minimum bill.
Right, and then in 2013, we did another 3%, except for the minimum user. And then 2014, we did another 3%. And the philosophy after we set in place the 2014 increase is that we were going to do at least annual increases of 3% each year. If you look at the averages of Avon Lake rate increases, they averaged during 2011 to 2014. Well, Keith's graph shows the other anticipated rate increases that are coming this year of 4.7%, and then in 15, 2 more anticipated increases of 4.6 and 3 to 4% next year as well. So the average.
If I can clarify on that, the first 2 of those anticipated are not estimates. Those are, we've been notified that is going to happen. The 4.7 and 4.6. The 3 to 4 on July 1st of 15, that was something Nino and I called up there and asked their director what he estimated. That was his estimate.
Okay.
So that's an estimate. The other 2 are not. The other 2 are known quantities.
Avon Lake's averages between 2011 and 14 were 6.8%, and the City of Medina's water rate increases, now this is from 2007 to 14, were averaged about 3.3%. So let me get back to how we've been trying to keep our water accounts, so we're not, so we're breaking even, if you will. We've had some projects in the past that put us farther in the red. The progressive water tanker, progressive drive tower, which we actually had to borrow money from our 301 account to help pay for that. We still on a payment plan with that. We had another issue that's come up, is that the Spieth Road tanks, which are, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 1 million gallon tanks on Spieth?
2 5 million gallons.
2.5 million gallon on Spieth that 12 years old, is that?
Yeah, 01, 02, something like that.
And suddenly, not suddenly, but the paint coating within these tanks are starting to fail, and we're gonna have to join in with the county to repair that, which the estimates are between 400, our share, between $400,000 and $500,000, is that correct?
Yeah.
Which throws another fork in our, keeping our accounts thin, and we need to take some action because we're gonna run out of money. And I think Keith's projections is by the end of 2015, we're closing the books with only, and these are both the water capital and the, we have the 513 water account and the 546 water capital account. We're closing the books only having 3% roughly of cash available at the end of 2015, which is equivalent to how much in operation? Is that half a month or?
Less than a week.
Less than a week.
Well, it's 2 weeks, it's less than 2 weeks.
So.
It's not enough for me to get from the beginning of the month to when our revenue starts to come in
Okay.
on cash flow basis.
So we are going to be in bad shape if we don't do anything to try to alleviate the situation. Utility, utility rate review met last week. Basically went over some of the same numbers I just presented and came with a recommendation of 5% increase, and that when it takes effect is in question, but that 5% increase, which should take effect within the next month or two, will get us through even with the Spieth Road. Well, let me back up. I don't even want to talk about Spieth yet, but that'll get us through a more comfortable level for closing the books in 2015, correct?
Right.
Okay. So I guess I'll start right there. We have an increase that goes in effect from Avon Lake, which starts July 1st. That's 4.7%. And then another one starting January 1st of 2015 of 4.6%. And that does not even include the money, or to take into consideration the money that's needed for the Spieth Road tank, which I believe we're probably going to have to borrow from the 301 like we did with the Progressive tank, and then repay that back. And with the additional increases from Avon Lake, honestly, probably utility rate review is going to meet again before the end of the year to figure out what we're going to do for next year, because we're kind of, our hands are kind of tied because of our supplier raising its rates, and this is a enterprise fund. Council and I believe the administration, we look at it that fund should support itself, and rate increases are inevitable because we get them from Avon and we have to pass it along to our customers. Nino Piccoli's request just mirrors the recommendation of 5%, which I'll open up to any of the other committee members. I know you guys are very familiar with what's going on, but I really don't have questions right at this second about the 5%, because just of what we just discussed or I put out there, to me, it's a no-brainer. The customers need to understand that we're doing everything we can not to carry a surplus. The money that we need is paying for the bills that we get from Avon Lake for the water we buy, and we have capital projects that are planned for this year and in the future that we have to pay for. So I'll open it up to you guys if you guys.
The only thing I want to add is to thank the Utility Review Commission for their hard work as usual. And I agree with you, Mark, and probably the administration is it's unfortunate that Avon is putting these types of increases. I still don't understand the reasoning for such a large amount of increases. I'm sure they have to have a capital program also that it seems to me that they should be able to anticipate improvements into their system and not, obviously we're not to have increases, but when, like you said, historically the large amount of increases seems kind of unfair to their users, but again, our hands are tied. So I agree wholeheartedly with Nino's request and utility rate reviews recommendations. And thanks again.
And Councilman Simpson brings up a good point about why these increases are from Avon. And Patrick, I know you go up there and you meet with them. It's just basic cost of supplying the water. I mean, are they doing any major capital improvements up there? That,
They are, there's projects to expand the capacity of the plant. In addition to what you mentioned, that the just annual increases in cost for chemicals, personnel, and that kind of thing. But I know they are increasing the size of the plant. They're also doing some programs for redundancy. All that benefits directly or indirectly us as well.
And Avon Lake, oh, I'm sorry. No, Avon Lake doesn't only supply the city of Medina and Medina County. They have their own customers up in Lorraine County, and I assume all those customers are seeing,
Right.
not to this magnitude, because we pay a little more of a premium down here in Medina County, but,
They would get the same percentage increase.
Oh.
Our agreement is tied, they can't charge us any more than 10% what they charge their own
10%
residents.
higher.
Right.
Okay,
So, which is what we're paying, so when we go up 4%, they also go up 4%.
all right. And it is required by the contract that they notify us 6 months in advance
Correct.
for the increases that are taking place. Now, when we did our last increase, when we did, really 2012 was when we reshuffled everything, and then we did 3% annually. At that time, and I don't recall, did we think we knew about anticipated increases? But when we did that 3% at that time, did we feel that we were going to be able to keep going with just 3% with refresh my memory, Keith?
Well, there's a couple things on that. We didn't think that we would be able to, although there was kind of a hope that we would. One of the big things that changed, other than the Spieth Road tanks, which is a $500,000 expenditure that we obviously had not planned on because it's not normal for a 13-year-old tank. But the other thing is that our use in 2013 was down. A lot of our revenue is weather dependent. If we get a very dry summer, we'll sell more water because people will sprinkle their lawns, things like that. Also, our industrial users, better economy, they use a little more water. Worse economy, they use a little less water. On one of the emails that I sent you a chart of our top 20 water users. There's a number of things that have pushed down the quantity of water used, but over the last 10 years, we've averaged a 0.5% a year decrease in revenue when you adjust out whatever rate increases we put in. There's a lot of reasons for that. One real good example is the hospital, which for a long time was our second largest user. The clinic has come in, and because of this change, Nino and I contacted them because it was a major change, and we wanted to know, something wrong with our meter or is something going on. Well, some of their procedures that use a lot of water, they've moved off-site. The other thing is they mentioned they've done a lot of efficiency initiatives. One of them that the manager out there explained to us was they have cleaning equipment that used to use water and then run it down the drain, where now they're filtering it.
Mm-hmm.
Their use has dropped roughly in half. So if they were still using what they were using 4 or 5 years ago, they would still be our second largest customer. As it is, they've dropped to, I think, is our 5th largest customer. And the amount of money that they pay us has dropped from around $100,000 a year to around $50,000 a year. That's just one example. It applies in residential too. You go out and replace a toilet, if you've got an older bathroom, it's got a 5-gallon toilet, you go out and replace it, you get a 1.8-gallon toilet. Well, there's almost 30,000 people living in the city.
Mm-hmm.
If every toilet flush over the course of 30 years goes from a 5-gallon toilet flush to a 1.8-gallon toilet flush, over the course of the whole city and 30,000 people, how many flushes do you have? That's a lot of, it's a lot of difference in what we're collecting in our rates, which I think is a big part of the reason that without any rate increase, on average, we've gone down 0.5% a year. So but you have to plug that in, because when you look at our costs, other than what we pay Avon, which fluctuates with use, everything else in our costs is really a fixed cost. It doesn't matter how much water we sell. We pay about $1.2 million a year in debt service out of these funds. That doesn't go down when we sell less water. You know, we pay meter readers to read the meters. We pay people in my office to send the bills and collect the money. We, you know, all of these things, we maintain the lines. All of those costs are fixed regardless of what happens with use. So when use goes up, it's good for us financially. When it goes down, it's bad for us. In 2013 specifically, we had a 3% rate increase. We brought in $26,000 less money because usage was down. Then some people said to me, well, you should have paid Avon less, right? No, Avon's rate went up enough that we paid them more money. So we paid Avon more money for less water and brought in less revenue. It's a bad financial situation. You know, we didn't, had we had use go up in 13, we'd be in a lot better shape right now. You know, if we'd have brought in another couple $100,000 from selling more water, which wouldn't have been unreasonable. And you know, when you look at these projections going out forwards, there's a lot of flex in here based on weather, based on industrial. You look at those top 20, some are industrial, some are basically residential. The trailer parks and the apartments, those things are on there. They don't fluctuate too much, but the industrials do. If the economy's good, you know, these people are doing a lot of business, they'll use more water. If it's not, they'll use less. Those things impact on the revenue side. But as we have less and less cash in our accounts, we have less and less ability to absorb those bad years. I quoted here back in January of 2007, we had $6.1 million in cash on hand in the water funds. Now we're down to $2.1 million. And the statement I made the other day was, we spend at roughly $5 million a year, we spend about $400,000 a month. Because the water bills that we send, our customers don't have to pay us until the 20th, I basically need to have enough cash on hand to get all the way through the month, because I don't start getting revenue in until I had to make 2 payrolls, had to pay Avon their $150,000 a month, et cetera. I've got to have $400,000 cash on hand, or else I can't get to the 20th. So when you talk about having $2 million, I mean, I don't look at that and say it's $2 million. I look at that and say it's 1.7, because the first 400 I got to have.
Right.
You understand what I mean?
Right.
And so we're getting down to where we don't have the kind of ability to absorb a wet summer.
Right.
So far, we've had a wet summer. And I don't know if that'll keep up.
And I
but it
appreciate you
will.
bringing up the efficiencies that, you know, our commercial and residential side are doing to better themselves and better leverage themselves on how much money they spend each year, and you can't blame them for that. Brian, you were gonna.
I was going to ask Pat, does Avon Lake provide us, or can we request documentation of what those additional funds will be used for? Or do we have any say? Do each of the members have a say in whether they go forward with some of these projects or not?
We have a say for any project involved with our water line, ETL2, which is the line from Avon to Medina. We own a percentage of that. There's a portion of it that there's 4 of us, including Avon Lake, and we have a say in there, and we all vote on that. And Avon Lake drops out, and there's a portion of just the 3 of us, the county, and Rural Lorraine, have a say over that. As far as what they do at their plant, we don't really have a vote, so to speak.
Whatever
They
they
presented
wanna do.
this stuff. I can't say we have any, like, an accounting type thing, but I'm sure we can request it.
They provide us any kind of annual report?
For the ETLs, you know, our
Okay.
ETL2, our report on our line, and
Our protection for that is the contract Pat mentioned earlier, it's 10% over what they charge their residents, which is our protection that they can't just subsidize their water for their residents by raising our rate. And then they, just like with our water fund, we're not allowed to take that money and use it for non-water purposes. They're under the same restrictions when they get audited, so they can't take that water money and use it to, build a new city hall. It's gotta be used for water purpose, just like ours would. So, I mean, that's our protection there, is those two things.
Okay. I guess another thing we need to talk about is, I know on the RCA, it states increase by 5% effective July 1st. Now, for that to happen, we would have to, in which, I believe that we need to follow the due process, if you will, like we've done it in previous increases. Utility rate review is discussed it, brought a recommendation, it is now here at our committee. I believe, depending on how we vote this evening, it'll go to finance on Monday. I know there was talks about maybe taking it right to the council floor just because of the urgency. I personally feel that we should, again, open it up here, but we should, at least talk about it on finance, pass it through finance on Tuesday of next week because of Memorial Day. And then at our next scheduled council meeting, have it on the floor to vote. But I don't know if that's really our,
What's the 5% for 1 month? I mean, what kind of money are we talking about?
We bring in about $3.5 million on the billed charges, so a 5% increase, 10% increase would be $350,000, so 5%. Well, I put it down here. 1% would be about $35,000 a year, so 5 is 5 times that, 175. Divide back by 12, 15.
now, Keith,
A month.
if we decide to put it at finance on Tuesday and wait until our next council meeting, then you have the 30-day period. I mean, I know we're already behind the 8 ball, but is it doable that we can?
Well,
I mean, I hate to do
I
a
understand.
rate increase with emergency clause, and it's not
I understand the question. The answer is,
requested on here, so maybe I shouldn't.
we are losing money. We have been losing money since you and I got here. And this will put us in a $15,000 a month better situation. Frankly, it won't be enough. This isn't going to stop us from losing money. It's just going to slow it down. Every additional month that we continue puts us that much further behind. It's $15,000 a month. We push this from July to August. Where does it put us? It puts us $15,000 closer to running out of money.
Right.
Eventually, we keep spending out of balances. Eventually, this fund is going to run out of money. At that point, we're going to have to either do an increase that's a big enough percentage to make up the entire, and I guess one thing, that's where it puts us.
Right.
I think one thing that we probably should address in there, because people always ask, well, what kind of cuts can you make or have you made? I think the important thing for people to understand about that is our debt service and the money that we pay to Avon combined to make up well over half of the expenditures of the fund.
When's our debt service end for the water line?
Well, we have some debt in this fund that runs out through 2031 or 32.
The majority.
Majority of the debt service falls off in 2022 and 2027 because we did extend the other one 5 years. But those two expenditures, because those two things are over half of the budget, and those two things aren't on the table, when we talk about making a cut in something, those two things aren't even on the table. We have no choice whatsoever. It leaves you with a really small amount of expenditures that you can even talk about cutting. And so to make any discernible impact here, you'd have to cut things by like 25%, and it's just not in the cards. You have to replace lines, you have to read meters, you don't have much choice on these things.
Another thing I think is important too is the notification process to our customers, whether it be a commercial or residential. I know in previous discussions in water rate increases, some of the commercial representatives stated that, they plan out a year ahead, and I know a lot of them didn't plan out for 5. I mean, we've already put a 3% increase in the beginning of the year, and I believe at that time we did say that we were going to do 3% annually, but this is a midstream increase, and even though it's setting it back a month, I think just like any other utility company or any other company providing service, whether it be cable or what have you, they at least provide you some kind of notification that there will be an increase in the next bill, or 30 days or 90 days, depending on what they do. And I thought that maybe that'd be important. Mayor?
Well, out of fairness to the utility rate review and the administration, it was council's direction to make it July 1st. If you
No,
guys
see, I
wanna
don't
make it-
recall that. I don't recall that.
You weren't at the finance meeting.
Okay,
When
I did.
I'm sorry,
I
it
came
wasn't the
in.
finance meeting, it was the water budget meeting.
That
Is
was-
when the July 1st date come up, because that's when we're getting the increase. In
Okay.
fact, there was talk, you come in at the end when they were talking about not even going to utility rate review
Okay.
and doing it July 1st. Am I
Right, you're
remembering
right,
that
you're correct.
correctly?
No.
Okay, so we take that recommendation from all of the council members that was here. It wasn't unanimous, but that was the marching orders we got. Now, if you guys want to change that, that's fine. But out of fairness, the administration presented what council directed us to present, and the utility rate review went along with the 7/1 date on the self-imposed marching orders that we had.
Okay.
So if you guys want to change that, that's up to you. There's a detriment to that. And then second of all, the 3% was built in, we met with the utility rate review and set it up in direct relation to what the budgets were set up.
Mhm.
Every budget for 5 years was a 3% increase, so we thought, instead of getting together every year and trying to come up with a number, we should at least have 3 as a baseline to match the budgets,
Mhm.
and then the other things. So in addition to what Keith is saying, it was an intentional action on our part, so that the budgets and the utility rate review recommendation kind of went hand in hand with one another.
Okay.
And along those lines, and I understand what you're saying, and I don't want to put a burden on anybody, any of the users, but facts are facts. We're losing money, and to push it off is what we discussed at that meeting, another month or 2 months before they get their first bill, that's just going to put us farther behind.
And we don't, tonight, we don't have to decide that. I mean, we'll get this out of here and take it to finance, and then.
Right.
I've got a quick question for Keith. The bills are due on the 20th, right? Can we get it to finance next week and then to council the week after and make it effective July 9th? That way it's due. Oh, wait a minute, I guess you can't do that, can
We
you?
mail the bills
Before that.
at the first or a little before the first. So I'd have to know when I send the bill, what the rate's gonna be when it's due. on
And
the
again,
20th.
we don't have to decide that tonight. I mean, what we have in front of us is it does say effective July 1st, and we can put a question mark by that and talk about that at finance. But I understand that we have to do something, and to me, it's.
And Bill asked the question, if I may.
Yeah.
Bill asked the question at the utility rate review, and you two were there, but for the rest, we're really talking about 58 cents for the lowest user. It's not like we're talking about $2 or $3 a
Right.
month or anything like that.
Sure.
Well, I think the bigger concern is the commercial end of it.
Yeah.
And how do you increase it for one and not the other at the same time?
Right, and we did talk about that the commercial has their budget set, as did we, and this 5%, came along. So we're having to absorb it. We know that's tough on them, and we're doing our best to try to get a better projection, but if they only have a 6-month notice that they have to give us, and they tell us in January it's going up in July, if we don't have the notice, we can't give them the notice.
Right.
We're trying to do the best we can.
Well, like I said, I would be in favor, I'll make a motion to pass this to finance, but I would also be in favor of passing it to finance effective July 1st. And then if we discuss at finance, if the majority of council and administration wants to change that, we can change it then, but I'll make a motion at this time to
Hold on, let me get the rest of the public here.
oh,
too.
okay, sorry.
We have two more council members out in the back there, if you guys, Mr.
Well,
Coyne?
I think a little different perspective than what we're talking about. Remember, in 2007, we had $6.1 million in the account, and we did this purposefully, trying to plan, because we were sued a while back for having too much money. And we're down to the point where now we have some mandates coming in from Avon Lake, and we're taking action on those mandates. But overall, the budgeting of the water account has been very good, I think. I think we're right on where we want to be. We may be a little bit behind because of these mandates coming from Avon Lake, but with a couple $1 million in there, making these modifications, I think once you make this modification, the bigger question is going to be in January, whether it's going to be a 3% or higher, since we know it's going to go over 4% again. So I think all that taken into consideration, sure, we had a bad year with water usage, a few of the industries going down, but in the big picture, we're probably very close, give or take a few percentages of where we want to be. I don't think that this is the sky is falling picture, but we have to take action to make sure we plan for the future years for the increases that are occurring and the increases in the salaries of the workers in the water plant. So I think we're pretty close, and the 5% would assist in that, because that'll make it 8% this year. Of course, you know I'm a proponent of giving more time for people to say, I don't see any issue waiting till August. It's not gonna, we're not gonna close shop in the month of July. It's not, you know, we're gonna have money. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna have that increase. The bigger question is, what do you do in January to solve that problem? Because we're gonna bring in $175,000 more, which, depending on the usage of the water, will depend. If we have a lot of usage this summer, we'll be in better shape. If we have a lot less usage this summer again, January is gonna be tough, because people may be looking at an 8 to 10% increase at that month. But at least we'll give them, you know, I think we should tell them now that there's gonna be more than a 5% increase in January, because we have to go at least the amount that we're gonna be charged.
Bill, do you have anything to add?
Keith, what's the average residential monthly bill for water?
We don't, I mean, as far as the average,
I mean, if you took them all up and divided by the number of users, what would you have?
I don't break residential from commercial, so it's not quite that easy for me. I would say it's probably, I don't even want to venture a guess on that. I can give you based on the FAA's, EPA's FAA. It has nothing to do with aircraft. EPA has a quantity that they consider the average for residential. But for our residential, they're lumped in with commercial. It makes it hard for me to break them out and say, you know, divide by the middle user.
Are you talking the amount of water or the average bill?
No, I'm just looking at the bill. You know, my point is just this, is last time we didn't raise the base rate for minimal users. We kept that where it was. And this time, you know, we're gonna raise that, but like the mayor pointed out, it's less than 60 cents. So that water bill is gonna go up less than 60 cents. And it would seem to me that that's not only doable, but for the rest of the people in the community, and I don't know exactly what it would be for each person's water bill, but it's not even that this is smart planning, it's really no choice, you know, you have no choice other than to do this or really have a big problem. And I think that most of the people that pay these bills, where it would be, for sure, with commercial, it would be nice to have more lead time, you know, for their budgeting. But I think, you know, we're dealing with mostly with grown-ups who understand that if it costs this much for us, somebody has to pay for that. And I think that you can handle that increase because it's beyond being justified, it's beyond justifiable. And I think that the way it's been approached in the past, before I got here, was well done. And I don't think that we ought to wait particularly. I think that we ought to go forward with it, and I think people would understand that, and I don't think it's gonna be a big inconvenience for anybody either, to pay this additional amount, because the longer you wait, then the less money the further you're gonna go in debt, which is actually then, the whole system goes further in debt. So it makes sense to try to address it now, rather than wait. I would prefer to see us do it and have it going into effect in July.
Keith, for it to go into effect in July, or John or Mayor, you want to chime in, it would have to go to finance on Tuesday, and then
Council.
on council floor Tuesday as well?
Yes.
It would either have to go to council on Tuesday, or it would have to go to council the following council meeting with an emergency clause. Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, to do it without the emergency, that's,
Okay.
and that's what I suggested to John, that if, you know, we don't want to have the emergency clause, we could take it, because we talked about it, either at finance or budget, I've lost track of what meeting it was, but we could go from finance to council, and then still have 30 days and be able to make the billing deadline.
Right.
Then,
What about notification to the customer? Do we want to give time to put something in the water bill to let them know that even though it's 5%, whether it be the residential or the commercial user, just to let them know that some might not even notice the difference, but to let them know that they're
Yeah, nobody knows about it yet, because it has never been in the paper yet. It'll be in the paper the first time after this meeting. And that's my biggest fear. I can write an article about it.
have the bills gone out this month? Yet? Or what will they? I mean, we could put it on like cable, we could do a press release to get, you know, extra coverage with the papers.
We haven't sent the June due bills, no.
When would they go?
Well, with the holiday, I'm not exactly sure. when
Well, the
it'll be.
question is, if we would do this on Tuesday, would we have time to get the stuff in?
No, because we'll already, if they're not printed yet, we'll already be printing them by then. Then we might not be done, but we'll be in the process.
So we wouldn't have a bill stuffer, but we could do a formal press release and put it on the cable channels, you know, for 30 days.
yeah,
I understand.
members of the utility rate review.
I was
Dolly?
just gonna say, as a utility rate review person, I understand what's going on, but as a citizen, I guess I would be thinking if the city gets notification 6 months in advance, why aren't the customers getting notice 6 months in advance?
That's a good question.
I got another question. I mean, I guess.
Hold on, let's see if we have an answer for her first. Why,
I think that, I would give the following two answers. First of all, the speed throw tanks is not something we budgeted for.
right.
And the $500,000 there coming up is something that's new to us. The second thing is that the use being down in 13 was something that we knew was a possibility, but we didn't budget for it. We had it as a possibility.
Bill?
Never mind.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other comments
No,
from the audience?
Did you get your question answered?
Who, Dolly?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I think we were hoping to absorb it,
right.
the 5% and get by with the 3, but because of those combination of factors,
Okay.
the hole is getting bigger and bigger and becoming more problematic. Mark, Amy is here also from the utility.
Oh, Amy,
review.
did you have, I apologize, do you have
No,
any
no, that's fine.
comments?
I think that there should be another way that people get to like notice, like I don't have cable, so I'm not gonna watch it. Either the city's Facebook, I don't know if the city has a Facebook, but I know the police does. So something like that could be blasted out that people would see
Mhm.
and they would definitely catch on to it quicker than probably cable
Good
or
suggestion.
paper.
Right. Well, and I wanted to give enough time that we could put something in the actual water bill. I know some people don't, they just pay online, but a majority of still, the customers still actually get a water bill, correct? I mean,
Well, even
in
the
mail
online,
or-
even the online, we can put a notice there.
Okay,
Whether anybody reads it is
sure.
questionable. I mean, even in the hard copy bills, whether anybody actually reads it is questionable, but on the online ones, probably even more so, because most people are just seeing the amount. You have to actually go into the thing to see an announcement.
Mhm.
The thing about an announcement, though, is if you want an announcement 30 days early, then you need to move back to August, and you still need to pass it at the meeting in May, because in order for me to, or with an emergency clause, because I can't really send that notice until it's
Actually passed.
in effect. And if it were to take effect at the meeting in June,
I understood.
it wouldn't be in effect until early in July, at which point we would already have sent the July due bills.
Mhm.
So that's not soon enough even for the notice.
Hmm.
Well,
So to get a notice out, which I think is important, would probably be we'd be looking at like mid-August or the August bill to really see the increase. Is that,
If you want a
Or would
notice
that be
in the
sep-
bill prior to, you would have to go,
in July's.
you would have to either go straight from finance to council on Tuesday, or do it in June with an emergency clause, and then I could, that would give me the ability to put a notice in July. If you want the notice to go a month before the increase, then the increase would have to be August, and you'd still have to rush this through.
Not necessarily, Keith. I think you could put a notice in anticipation of it passing, and you could qualify your language and say, it has been passed, if it's not challenged, it'll go into effect.
No, I don't think that legally that's correct, because it's not in effect until it passes.
That's right.
So we're saying hypothetically, this might happen.
Right.
That was how I,
I mean, because they can referendum it or anything else.
Right, they can.
Yeah, yeah.
I like the idea that there's a suggestion of a press release, and Amy's suggestion of putting it on our website.
Website, Facebooks.
Yeah.
Right.
All right,
We'll
yeah.
use all those.
And probably the website, Facebook, and a press release is, more people are going to be aware of it than, but you're right, most people, I can only speak for myself. Well, I can't say that, because I do read them. I would say most people probably don't read the attachments in their utility bills. I would venture a guess. I would, and maybe I'm wrong there, but I think we probably would have a high targeted area with a press release and the website and Facebook.
I still think there'd be some value to getting on cable as well. I mean, I don't read the water bills, but I do.
There's my point, thank you.
I have cable, Facebook, city NPD, website, press release. And we, depending on what the deadline is, then we would do the other notice. I mean, we'll hit as many things as we can. And you're right, Brett. Some people will see it on cable that aren't on Facebook. Some people see it on Facebook that aren't on cable. So that's why blasting as much as you can, you take a chance of hitting as many as you can. And just like the press releases, I mean, Kevin does a great job with the Post, but there's some press releases, if they've got the paper busy with other things, they may or may not print it.
And I agree wholeheartedly with the mayor. I don't think you do any kind of notice until it's actually effective.
Right.
I'm just a little uncomfortable putting something out there.
No, I don't feel
Probably
comfortable
will
with a
happen.
maybe either. I mean, I
Right,
want
right.
something that is in place and we notify the customer properly. And whether it be all those avenues plus to me, the water bill should be one of those, but that's just me, but.
Well, I think that's gonna depend on when we go to finance, if it's the majority votes.
Sure.
Not to put it on to August, then we have the opportunity to,
Sure.
an avenue to at least get it in there. But if we wanna put it on before, that's not gonna be an option.
So here we are. So, I'll entertain a motion to accept Utilities Rate Review Commission's recommendation of a 5% increase. They have effective July 1st, which I think maybe we should wait until the finance to hammer out the actual date, but.
Or we can always put July 1st and then change it if the majority wants.
Okay,
Well, your recommendation is going to be July 1st.
okay,
Right.
So you all vote yes, there's three of you that are going to stay with the July 1st.
okay.
Just-
So I'll entertain
I'll make a motion to accept the utility review's recommendation and Mr. Picoli's RCA of increasing the utility rate by 5% effective July 1st.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All in favor, same sign? Aye. And I'm doing that because I'm not ready to just say July 1st, so. And so that's it on that. The next item on the agenda is just an update from the administration. Back, was that January, February? Or that was February, I believe. We had a water meeting to talk about. We had a representative from Avon Lake come in to talk about the whole freeze situation and our water supply scare. And there was some topics that we talked about to try to better position ourselves for this coming winter. And Patrick, I don't know if you would like to give us an
Sure.
update. I know we talked about county connections. Go ahead.
Yeah,
See where we're at.
We did approach the county, and the county indicated that they would have no problem, would certainly agree to entering into an agreement with the city to supply an emergency connection. The hurdle or the obstacle was whether or not they can supply City of Cleveland water to the city. Just for us having a connection with Medina County is a big benefit to us, a huge benefit. But if we faced ourselves in a situation like we did back in January, where both of us are running out of water, that City of Cleveland connection becomes very important. Well, they approached the City of Cleveland, their legal team, or their lawyers, and City of Cleveland ultimately decided that they could not do it through their existing agreement, that they would have to draft another agreement with Medina County, which included us as kind of a rider, or included the provision that they could supply the city with water. I don't think anyone's opposed to it, but they felt that they couldn't do it within their current agreement. Regarding that agreement, I did speak to Amy from the county sanitary this afternoon. She has not heard anything in a couple weeks. She's going to approach the county prosecutor when she sees him next week, try and contact City of Cleveland, because City of Cleveland is going to take the lead on it, try and push it a little bit. Regarding our agreement with Medina County, we did, about 2 weeks ago, we received the agreement prepared by the county. Our law director looked at it, he had some comments, we submitted those back to Medina County. Waiting, hopefully within the next week or so, we'll have an agreement on both sides, we can bring it to council and then move forward with it.
Well, point of clarification, we received that from Mr. Hugh to review, what, 2 weeks ago maybe?
About 2 weeks ago, yeah.
So he reviewed it probably within a week, made his comments, and then it has to go back to Mr. Holman's office. The county preferred that their legal department prepare the document versus us. And with all due respect to Mr. Holman's office, much like our law department, you know, they're handling prosecutions and civil matters and everything else. That's one of those things that gets set aside until they get some time to work on it. So now we're waiting for them to respond to Greg's. I did mention to Patrick this afternoon that sometimes these things are better resolved if we could get Bill Thorne and Greg at a conference table together, have them do their alternate strike of words until we can come down to the sentence we all like. Because if they're waiting on one another, it's one of those things that keeps getting pushed and intended to get to. So I'll ask Greg if he's willing to let Dawn try to arrange that, see if we can't push this along.
Okay.
In the meantime, we have put together the drawings for these connections and submitted them to the county engineers for their comments. Our idea is, as soon as this agreement gets ironed out, then we can immediately start ordering acquired materials and getting it installed.
Okay. Another thing we talked about, and when Avon was here, our representative from Avon was here, they assured us that, correct me if I'm wrong, that you know, they were going to have extra access to pumps in place. They were, I think, chasing before when this happened to get everything in place, but they assured us that there would be extra pumps in place to get to their water intake for processing the water.
I forget the exact number, but they ultimately used several pumps during that evening to bypass their system to get water down to us, or water into their plant to treat to get down to us. They kept one of those on site through the winter just in case, but they have agreements that however many they need, I'm thinking it's 3 or 4, whatever it was, that they have an agreement now that those can be on site within 4 hours of a phone call all year round.
And was there something in reference to when we talked before about, was it a mobile? Didn't we have
Correct, yeah.
mobile pumps?
Now that has to do with our connection. We're looking at 3 different connections, one on Lake Road, one on East Smith, which we call our gravity. And by that we mean that at those locations, the county's pressure in their system is higher than ours. So all we have to do is turn a valve and water will go from their system and fill ours. A critical connection would be up north on the Court Street or Huntington Street area where we need the water. That's our biggest district. Unfortunately, the situation's opposite there. Our pressure is higher than the county's, so if we open a valve, we'd be draining to the county, so they have to be pumped. so we have to put in some sort of pumping device, whether it's a mini pump station or something portable.
Mhm.
Mini pump station is kind of like the Cadillac option. That's there, we know it's already, but it's also very expensive.
Mhm.
What we were pursuing, and actually Nina was pursuing, was a portable device, something that can be transported on site. Kind of similar to what we did that evening when we brought a fire pumper out
Mhm.
and just went from hydrant to hydrant. In that case, because it was not considered potable, we had to issue the citywide boil alert.
Mhm.
But we're looking, there are pipes and hoses you get that would pass the EPA's requirements where, we could supply it and not have to worry about a boil order. I know, I spoke to Nino today about that. He's still contacting the various firms that he knows supplies that and waiting for a response.
Okay.
But those pumps are pretty pricey.
Right.
Because they're sterilized and,
Mhm.
so that's what we're kind of balancing. To have one on hand could be in the area of $40,000 to $50,000, the pump itself,
Mhm.
than all the other connections. Not that that's, in the scheme of things, water's necessary. But then my question was, could we have something available, kind of like Avon Lake is doing, that if we run into a problem within 2 or 3 hours, they could guarantee, and we pay either a lower fee just to have that contractual agreement with them. They weren't sure of that, they're reviewing that with their folks, because I imagine they only have a limited number of these, so,
Mhm.
would they be able to accommodate that? And once we have, that's kind of the analysis that's still ongoing. And once we have all that, we'd be happy to bring it back and present it, and you tell us which way you want us to go.
Worst case scenario, though, we could do what we did with the fire truck, hook it
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Even though there'd be a citywide
Boil
boil
alert,
alert,
yeah.
there would still be water available.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes,
So,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, we know that works. And again, that works as long as Cleveland permits
Sure.
the county to open that valve, knowing that some of it's coming to the city. So that's why that agreement is pretty important too, because, depending on who's in charge,
Sure.
at some point they could just say, no, we don't have an agreement, you can't use it, so.
Would there be any reason why Cleveland wouldn't want to renegotiate an agreement for that? I mean, do you
No,
guys
I don't.
forecast anything?
No,
or
I
any
don't
reason?
believe so. It's just a matter of, because the city isn't the customer, and if we become the end user, there has to be some sort of agreement.
Sure.
And, I don't know, maybe even a bump in the price, that if we're selling it to the county and you're selling it to somebody else, either, I guess they just have to work out the details.
Okay.
I don't think they have any objection at all. I just think it's probably 100th on their list of priorities.
Sure. Okay.
Light a fire was.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update, I appreciate it. Anything else for the committee? Anything else from the public? All right, this meeting's adjourned, thank you.